So,
right.
Anna Marie Cox. Good to see
John
you.
Fine.
Although I can't see you, you know. Did you get dressed up?
I did not get dressed up. I'm actually the opposite of dressed up. Which doesn't mean I'm not dressed. It just means
please that it would, it'd be very inappropriate otherwise. I look like I'm wearing a tuxedo, but it's just one of those T-shirts. All right, okay. But seriously, so Anna, you've been on the trail, unlike some of us in this conversation, and we were emailing back and forth on when the press was going to turn on Barack Obama, if they were going to do that, how they were going to do that,
and whether or not they need to. I mean, I think one real question here is, I keep hearing this from the people on the McCain campaign and from other Republicans, that what the narrative of this campaign is that the press has been easy on Barack Obama, that they haven't done anything to puncture the myth of his awesomeness. And
but on the other hand, they've been incredibly hard on John McCain all along.
Right, exactly. I mean, the thing is, it's funny, actually, the person who's probably the most smart about this on the McCain campaign is Mark McKinnon, who recently reiterated his, promise to quit the McCain campaign should Barack Obama get the nomination. Because he would not feel comfortable, quote, would not feel comfortable working on a campaign that has to attack Barack Obama. He really likes the guy. And
so Mark McKinnon is part of the cult as well, we see.
Well, Mark McKinnon, part of which cult? The
Obama cult. I mean, that's actually news to me. That's completely deranged. I can't believe I'm hearing that.
Well, he actually said it about a year ago, almost. I think over a year ago. You know who he is, I assume. He is
yes, of course.
The head of Maverick Media. He was the person who did the best ads for the Bush-Cheney campaigns, including the Kerry water surfing ad, or windsurfing ad.
Windsurfing, yes, windsurfing.
And so for him to say this is pretty interesting, but also I do think that he is the most media savvy of all the people in the McCain campaign, and he understands exactly how dangerous Barack Obama is in terms of a media entity. I'm not sure if other people in the McCain campaign do, although they would tell you they understand what it means to be a media darling. But they are really trusting that the media somehow rise up against Barack Obama. But my question to you, John Fine, what is there to rise up against? What is the thing the press should be doing with Barack Obama that they're not?
What is the things to rise up against? His entire voting record, his friendship with Resco, the fact that 3 or 4 years ago he was in the Illinois State Senate.
Well, okay,
I'm just getting started here.
Well, you know
these
things, so the press doesn't, so the press isn't making that information available? Like, what is the problem here? I'm actually not being facetious. Like, I think what's interesting is all of this information is pretty readily available, but is yet to kind of, like, sort of, gain a purchase in the imagination. And I'm not sure if that's the press's fault or not.
Well, all information is readily available. I mean, you can go to the website, I think it's called whodatedwho.com, and click on Bill Clinton. And there's a lot of information that's available there, but nobody knows that, I didn't know half that stuff, and I actually have no idea if it's true or not, so hopefully Bob Rye won't get sued for me saying this. But there's a difference between the information being available and it being known. I mean, like, we kind of know this whole Resco thing. What if there's more to it? I got to say, one thing that I'm a little concerned about is if the spotlight is going to turn on Michelle Obama and she's going to be kind of like, as Hillary was in 92, she might become in 2008. She's clearly a first lady that... I can't believe it is a first lady. You can shoot me now. She's a first... Well, she is a first lady, right?
She would be the first lady, yeah.
What a horrible phrase. My God. I mean, like, my Oberlin training, like, came up and just kicked me in the ass.
We should invent a new word, like first partner. That's very Oberlin.
Partner, first, yeah, like, number one chica, But
Co-president? I think Hillary would like that.
Well, no, Bill would like that. Or at least he would like half of it.
Right.
But with Michelle Obama, I think, she's she's got like kind of a sarcastic sense of humor. She's pretty fierce. I could see that not playing well. But I mean, I'm surprised to hear you think that there's nothing for the press to, go at Barack Obama.
No, I think that there's lots for them to go after. I just think that one of the things that's happened in this cycle is that all of the kind of oppo research tricks that are usually pretty reliable haven't worked out as planned. And I think that's true on both the Republican and Democratic sides. And I think that, like, the most obvious thing being this idea, like, almost every piece of the oppo research that the Hillary campaign has tried to play against Obama has, if not backfired, then just fallen flat. I mean, from, his cocaine use, which he's the one who added first, to his present votes, which just kind of fell flat, to this lack of experience meme, which I think what's interesting about the lack of experience meme is that people seem to say, like, yes, he doesn't have experience, so what? Like, they really don't care. I mean, it's
right now.
Entirely different. It's the entirely wrong message. And of course, like, the McCain people are dearly hoping that yes, they will care in the general. But there's a question about whether or not and it is a different electorate. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is the question. Like, if the press is going to somehow turn on Obama, or if the press is going to start to, as the McCain people say, do their job about Obama, what is the job that they need to do? Do they need to remind people of the lack of experience he has? Because I think that that's not anything that people don't know. So what's the thing that the press isn't doing with Barack Obama that they should be doing?
I'm not sure that they've gone as deep on him. He's lucky. I can't finish the sentence. He's lucky in that he doesn't have, a Senate record that's 30 years long, and he didn't have a gubernatorial record like Bill Clinton did that was, 4 terms long. And he wasn't the governor of a small state like Arkansas, where you do have to kind of, if you want the state to run on a basic function and you want to keep jobs there, you do have to suck up to Tyson Chicken and let them, turn all your streams yellow. He didn't have to do that because he hasn't done a whole lot. But, what was he doing? I mean, I'm surprised to hear you say this. I mean, this is really endless. I mean,
wait, what do you mean?
What were some of the weirder votes?
Say?
What were some of the weirder? Well, I mean, because there's always something.
Of course, there's always something. I just think that one of the fallacies here, and this is why I keep talking about Mark McKinnon, I think one of the fallacies here is that suddenly the press will start doing the job they haven't done. I think that what the Republicans think is going to happen is that, or what they hope will happen, is that the press will suddenly decide, you know what, he's not so great, and we were wrong, and we're going to, tell people all the bad stuff that we didn't tell them before. But the thing is, and this will get us to our next point, I think, is that the press is loath to admit they've ever done anything wrong. And so, I think the more generous coverage they give Barack Obama, the less likely it'll be that they ever give him more critical coverage.
There's a couple of things with that, and one is, the press, as we know, loves John McCain and Ryan Lizza. Well, it's true,
including me. Yes,
and I was teasing you about that as well. In the issue of the New Yorker that's about to hit tomorrow, Ryan Lizza has a long piece on riding the bus with McCain and his bizarre sense of humor and openness. Like, he keeps telling Brooke Buchanan that well, you just got out of Betty Ford and she's pretty shaky, but let's be nice to her. Ha ha ha. But the press adores John McCain and they get access from him in a way they don't get from Barack Obama.
Right.
And, there's the sense, I mean, I've certainly been reading about it and hearing about it, that is a very disciplined, message-oriented campaign. And Barack doesn't hang out. No. And he doesn't come back and schmooze on or off the record.
No.
And I think we could see a dynamic, assuming it is McCain and Obama, which, by the time this actually gets on the web could be completely blown up. But we'll pretend right now that it will be McCain and Obama in the general. In 2000, certainly Al Gore supporters, and I would agree, not being much of an Al Gore supporter, that the press liked George W. Bush, just as a person, an awful lot, and they really did not like Al Gore. And we could see, where some kind of, I don't know if home court advantage is the term to use here, but where some kind of, where a candidate gets a bit of a bye on a lot of issues and where he gets the benefit of the doubt. Maybe McCain will be the one to get that and Obama won't.
I can tell you that's definitely what the McCain people are hoping is going to happen. I don't know. I mean, I wasn't on the trail in 2000, and so I can't, and I wasn't on the trail in 2000. I knew people who were out in 2004, so I feel like I have a little better feel for that. But
right, and everyone loves Kerry, but that's all of it.
That's right. But I feel like the thing that happened in both 2000 and 2004 isn't so much whether or not the press liked George Bush as a person. I would think you would find that's not what they felt, but they were actually, this is a really base way to put it, but their lives were comfortable and they were fed the information that they needed to get fed, things weren't very difficult, things, the trains ran on time and whatnot. That's sort of a horrible way to put it. But there wasn't an adversarial relationship between, Bush and the press, whereas it did sometimes start to feel like there's an adversarial relationship between Kerry and the press and Gore and the press, which is a weird thing for there not to be an adversarial relationship because that's what you want actually with a candidate. And it is also true that McCain is very good at diffusing that adversarial relationship because even when he's fighting with you, it's a very kind of endearing kind of fighting. Like, because what does the press want more than anything else? And you would know this as well as anyone. They want to be taken seriously. They want to be thought of as smart people. And McCain treats the press like smart people who he takes seriously.
Which makes him really the one major candidate, I think, like that. I mean, you would know more about the Romney press operation.
Romney, yeah, and Romney. No, I think McCain is the only candidate that treats the press that way. And I do think you're right, that I think that is the one thing that the McCain people have to sort of hang their hat on, which is that they hope that in the glare of a general election campaign, when the press are covering the two campaigns, the people who have access to McCain, the people who see him interacting with voters and with reporters, will compare that to how Barack Obama is interacting or not interacting with the press and supporters, and they will draw an implicit comparison or an explicit comparison and start to treat Obama more harshly. And again, like, that's kind of all the McCain people can hope for, because they're not going to have money to combat Obama. They're not going to have. Do we really think they won't have money at that point? I mean, they'll have a lot of time to start gearing that up, and eventually, I think Republicans will come around to a degree, maybe not to the degree that Obama and Hillary can raise money, but I don't think he's going to be. Well, they're not going to be poor, but look at the differentials between the two parties on this issue, like just up to now. Right. I mean, it's going to it's not going to be as much, and it's going to be definitely, and they're not going to have the enthusiasm and the momentum. I mean, what they're going to have, if they have anything, is like if they can change the narrative away from awesome superstar guy to just rock star. Which, I don't know if you mean, like, this campaign has moved so quickly. There was a period, I think it was last summer, when people were saying that Barack had lost his momentum, and all he was a rock star.
Well, I remember when he had to do that front page article in the New York Times saying, like, well, I'm now going to go after Hillary, and I was like, oh, wow, dude, you're finished. I mean, you have to, like, telegraph that. And, once again, we see how sagacious I was in thinking that. But that's true. I think the issue with Obama is if he can. I mean, this is now getting into the boring part, and we can move on. Like, if he can mix it up and blah blah blah. And for that matter, if he can, I think with him, there might even be a chance that he'll take himself like too seriously. I don't know how long you can see crowds of like 20,000 people screaming and crying and fainting. At least if we believe Drudge. That doesn't go to your head if you're relatively new to this process.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of that kind of stuff depends on his personal character. But I can also tell you that I think that that's going to be the contest for this cycle. And I mean, again, I keep wanting to talk about how wrong the press has been about stuff. But one thing
I think it's time to start talking about how wrong the press has been.
Okay,
we're officially transitioning.
But here's something that to think about, which is this is the only hope the McCain people have. Again, I think this is if it's against Hillary or Obama, is to make this about character and not issues. Because on issues, if you look at the polling for the past year or so, the Democrats actually do better than the Republicans by a large margin. On the war, on the economy, on national security, like, people have swung around to the Democrats on all of those things.
But I think generically, I mean, the Democrats had the issues in 2000 and 2004 as well. I mean, it was closer because, there was no war in 2000, and 2004 might have been, shiftier. It's not that... the issues have favored the Democrats, and the candidates have favored the Republicans. And I mean, I think this goes back as far as Reagan to a certain degree.
Well, I mean, and I'm just saying that, again, like, that's what they have to hope is going to happen, especially, although, again, in a way, like, it's ironic that favors McCain to switch it to character, because I think that what I'm saying is that he would be hurt so badly by an issue-based campaign. I mean, it's ironic that someone who says they're a straight talker and whatnot really can't afford to have a campaign where he talks about issues, because the issues that he would want to talk about are deeply unpopular with the American people. That doesn't mean he's wrong. It doesn't mean he's right. It just means that they're very, very unpopular. But how
about the press being wrong?
How about the press being wrong? This is actually one of my favorite things this cycle, is how wrong we've all been. Like, I know that you and I could probably both, I don't know for sure, but could probably both tell stories about having conversations with colleagues where you express an opinion and either everyone agrees or everyone disagrees, but it turns out it's completely wrong. Like, I remember having a conversation with a colleague who told me there is no way that McCain can win New Hampshire. There's absolutely no way McCain can win New Hampshire if Hillary doesn't win Iowa. And
that's confusing, but okay, all right, fine.
Yeah, I mean, it totally made sense at the time. Her argument was completely valid.
It's completely lost to me. All I can tell you is that I predicted and told several people that Edwards and Romney were going to win in Iowa, and On New Year's Eve, I was at a dinner party, and we went around the room and made predictions. This is how crazy things got at the dinner party. We were making, presidential ticket predictions. And I said the tickets were going to be Clinton Webb on the Democrat side and Romney McCain on the Republican side. So, I mean, I might be, I guess I could be half right, but it looks like I might be 1/4 right at this point.
You mean on Webb?
Webb, yeah. And I like the idea of Webb. I like the idea of Webb. But, I mean, this is just my theory, which I'm sure I'll be wrong about because the press has been wrong, that, to put this as bluntly as possible, if you're a Democratic candidate in a time of war or threat, and, you need one guy on the ticket, and it has to be a guy with gray hair who's actually killed people. John Kerry was that guy. Jim Webb, was Jim Webb in the military?
Wait, I guess, are you talking by accidentally killing people?
No, I'm not talking about Chappaquiddick. I'm talking about someone with war experience, someone who's sent troops to war, someone who's been on active duty, someone who's fired a gun at an enemy.
I mean, seriously, on the Bush-Cheney ticket, who are you talking about?
Well, I mean, Cheney was just only after the when he went on a hunting trip much later. But,
okay, because I was going to say, again, accidentally hurt people, but
I said Democratic. I said Democratic because I think the Republicans have a generic advantage there. But of course, I could be wrong because I'm the press.
Right.
But
okay. And this is the thing to talk about, and this is the thing that I really am interested in talking about, which is that, all right, there was the Hillary is inevitable meme, right? Mm-hmm. And then there was the McCain is dead. And I'm trying to think the other ones. And then there was Iowa's going to decide everything.
Well, and there was Obama has stagnated.
Right, Obama stagnated, which I just said. And what I think is really interesting is despite all of these missteps, no one has ever backed down from infallibility on this. Pundits just keep moving forward, and maybe that's just the nature of the game. And you would know more about this than me, I guess. I mean, being the media critic that you are.
Being wrong or about being a...
about, why is it that there's been no expression whatsoever of any kind of, not necessarily regret or remorse, but just a willingness to acknowledge that a lot of us got this very, very wrong.
Well, I feel that around the edges, for sure, that's definitely been there. I mean, if you read, Slate's coverage, which tends to be unusually knowing, everything is kind of in air quotes with them. They've certainly made that point. I feel like I've read that in your magazine here and there. But at base, this is a kind of thing without consequence, because it's not like anyone is placing wagers on this. It's not the stock market, and I hope no one's going to in-trade based on what, I would name a columnist that I actually like Jonathan Alter or Joe Klein, are predicting right now. And I think there's a given that there's been a lot of uncertainty baked in. But, essentially, one of the great joys of journalism and media is that there, in a lot of sectors, there's no consequence to it. You are paid to have an opinion. You are paid to express that entertainingly. And it gets kind of secondary as to how right you're going to be at the end of the year. To use just one...
You know what? I think you just unloaded a big scoop on a lot of people who don't follow this regularly, which is that we're paid to have an opinion and that it's only about how entertainingly we express it and not how right we are that matters.
I'm doing card tricks right now. You can't see, but but it's true. At what point do savvy people stop watching, McLaughlin to see who's right in their predictions at the end of the week? And I guess it's different for pollsters, perhaps, because there's real data. But come on. Journalism it's a very polling. There's hard science to aspects of polling.
I don't think that it should be a hard. I don't think that it should be a hard science, but I think that there should be accountability. The journalists are responsible for holding people in power accountable and holding people who are in government positions accountable. Shouldn't someone or shouldn't we be in the practice of making sure that if we got something wrong, it's not like we're out of business, but that we should explain why we got it wrong?
Conceivably, but can you imagine how many horrible articles we'd have to sit through if we did that?
They would all be run on Romanesco. No one has to read them. They just have to be run on Romanesco, and there's some self-flagellating that happens. You can't see.
There'd be the special.
I'm doing the action of self-flagellating right now. So
I think that this is an actual different site for Romanesco. I think this is the next site. But seriously, I think there are certain aspects of being a journalist now where you can say wow, I really screwed that up, and I'm sure if you have a blog, you can do this very easily.
Which I actually think, that's one of the things, I don't think blogs are good for everything or for everyone, but I think that that's one of the places where they actually are useful for journalists, is to acknowledge, because you're right, not everyone wants to read, the part where you say, and I got this wrong, and I got this wrong, and I got this wrong. But I think to have that information out there, is worthwhile. And I
Totally.
think, and I'm just interested because I mean, like the worst case scenario is something like the Iraq War, right? I mean,
right. Okay. Actually, thank you, because that's something with consequence. It's not like who's going to win and who's going to lose. That's like, hundreds of thousands of people's lives at stake. So, good point.
Exactly. And so, like, there should be some way that we're held accountable for stuff like this. I mean, yes, like, I'm actually not a believer in the fact that, like, we should expect every newspaper article or blog post to be entirely accurate. But I just think that there needs to be an institutional memory and an institutional responsibility. And I don't want it to be just Romanesco, honestly. I think that we should be personally responsible for it. But you're right. Like, whether or not who wins and loses is not necessarily the most important thing. But then, to put it in the perspective of the Iraq War, I mean, sometimes who wins or loses is the difference between hundreds of thousands of lives.
Yeah, well, you're right. I mean, and there's sort of... There aren't a lot of adequate answers to that. I mean, I could say that Judy Miller lost her job for a variety of reasons.
Which we all take great pleasure in.
This was certainly one of them. She also went to jail for slightly different reasons. And then she got that really weird note from Scooter Libby that I still will
Which Scooter Libby took great pleasure in.
I'm sorry?
Which I said Scooter Libby took great pleasure in.
When you start talking about the Aspens, like,
Turning.
out west where you vacation, the Aspens share root systems, I was like, wow, something... I actually don't want to know what this means. But, I think the big groaning institutions of journalism, do this to a certain degree. I think it took a long time for the New York Times to climb down, and we can argue as to how satisfactorily they've done that. But to go back to your point about how all this is available, I mean, there is, that incredibly tedious ombudsman column where they do, like, gradually kind of sift through the tea leaves and, make that kind of, journalism professorial, admission of hand-wringing there somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of those things, but I just think that, I do think, okay, let's just get back to a concrete question, which is that, is there something that should be happening different with campaign coverage right now in light of the fact of how wrong people have been in general?
Yeah. Well, I think, the bubble effect is, it's just, there are only a few hundred people talking to each other, and it actually, the funnel gets even narrower. I'm really sorry to say this, but I've been reading a lot of, like, the big wrap-up books on the campaigns of, like, 84 and 88 and 92 and 2000, and, it's really interesting how campaign operatives are, like, the most important people, like, maybe even more important than candidates, because guess who's talking to the journalists,
Right.
And so certain people's stars go up. I mean, it's really interesting how in... the Newsweek wrap-up books in the 84 and 88 election, like, wow, Joe Trippi's name is all over this. I mean, I guess he was really significant, and, and for that matter, all the stories get retailed the same way. I think that, you see, this is where I kind of cringe, and if you could see me, you see that I am cringing, because this gets into
I'm
the
glad I don't, but go ahead.
You're glad you can't. And I just rolled my eyes, too, which you've been doing the entire time. Because this almost gets into the sort of, like, journalists, we should, and I just, like, my skin crawls, because normally that's so icky.
Well, I don't know how much we want to talk about this, and maybe this is for a conversation for a later time, but one thing that I really noticed, this, as I've said, this is my first year, like, really being out on the trail, and one of the things that really shocked me, I shouldn't say shocked, but, that I was, taken aback by, was how little people on a bus or plane or whatever wind up talking to actual...
human beings.
Yeah. And,
yep.
I mean, and I'll, dirty secret confession time, which is that when I was on the Romney bus, or the Romna bus, as I like to call it, I talked to voters and, like, passers-by and, like, whatever, bystanders, about 100 times more than I did when I was with McCain, because when I was with McCain, I had a notebook full of things to write about. You know?
And for that matter, you could talk to the candidate whenever,
right.
who's
exactly.
pretty interesting.
And so when I was with Romney, I had no quotes from the candidate and hardly any quotes from the campaign. So if I wanted to write a story that wasn't just me, like, sucking on my thumb, which, believe me, that's fun to do, but kind of boring, I had to go talk to people. But the other thing that really shocked me, though, is, like, how you don't have to talk to people. The most, respected news organizations in our business, if you look at their campaign coverage, the quotes are not going to be from voters or from pollsters. They're going to be from the candidate, they're going to be from surrogates, and they're going to be, from analysts. And that is why the coverage varies. The coverage just and that's where the coverage is so wrong.
Right. Well, exactly. Well, I mean that's basically exactly it, and it becomes self-fulfilling because you're surrounded by all these smart people who are as obsessed as you are,
right?
And that leads to this sort of hothouse atmosphere where Hillary was just roadkill coming out of Iowa, and oh wait, oops, sorry, maybe not, and I mean. Whatever crazy rise and falls happened with, clearly, McCain was buried a little early, and maybe was Huckabee overstated? I can't even remember now. I mean,
Huckabee knew what to make of. I actually have to say some of the coverage of Huckabee is probably the best coverage that's happened because people have been genuinely confused, and so therefore talking to more people than they would. I mean, the thing with McCain, with Romney, with Hillary, with Obama, and with Edwards is the narratives were already so pre-made. Like, you didn't have to talk to many people to get your narrative out there.
So you're basically coming out in favor of confusion, which actually I fully endorse.
Oh, I am coming out in favor of confusion. Definitely. I think the best stuff that I've done has been when I had no idea what was going on. And
right.
That sounds ridiculous, but I think you know what I'm saying, which is that if you have no idea what's going on, then you have to go out and talk to people. You have to go out and talk to more people than you would normally. And you have to talk to people who maybe will say something besides what you already know, which is the real danger of campaign journalism, is to only talk to the people who already agree with you.
Right, which is because you get down into the weeds, and you certainly can, and it's fun and all that. All right, maybe we should move on to next topic. I have to look at my pad.
Okay.
Oh wow, this is gonna be a good one. Why don't we do the Drudge non-factor?
Oh, this is a favorite of mine.
Go. I think. Yeah. Why don't you lay it out and we'll whack it around?
Okay. Well, this is. There was an article that came out, I think, in September of last year that was about the two campaigns that had a direct line to Matt Drudge. And it was Matt Rhodes at the Mitt Romney campaign and actually a friend of mine that is a consultant for the Hillary Clinton campaign that both have personal relationships to Matt Drudge. And they were full of examples of things that had been fed by the campaigns to Matt Drudge and sort of the excitement and energy that had, erupted from these things. Okay, well, let's look at how successful Matt Rhodes was in getting Mitt Romney the nomination for Republicans. Not so successful.
Not so well. Not so well.
And then it also looks like Hillary Clinton. I mean, we don't want to talk. We don't want to counter out completely, but it does look like, at the very least, that she is not benefiting from, let's say, a lot of favorable media coverage, and she's definitely not benefiting from the kinds of stuff that Matt Drudge does. And I think that this is an interesting cycle where we can point at Matt Drudge as a non-factor, at least in the primary. I mean, maybe something different will happen in the general, but I think it's very interesting to look at how little of an impact he's had. I mean, I can't think of a single Drudge-driven story.
I can't either. And the ones that would have been sort of obvious, like the John Edwards love child thing that Mickey Kaus was so exercised about.
That might have not happening.
So say that again?
I mean, it didn't really happen in a...
No, it basically didn't. Well, I guess, to argue against that, I would think that if you're Hillary Clinton, you want to have a line into Drudge because you want to have him in the tent peeing out rather than vice versa. And if you're Hillary Clinton and you have a husband named Bill Clinton, I mean, you have to make your deals with the devil wherever you can to try to buy a little bit of goodwill. Maybe there isn't a lot of dirt to dump on Obama. I have a hard time believing that, by the way. There's got to be, something that will become a 3 or 4 day news story that might knock him around a little bit.
You may be right, but I also think that what's happened, and this is something that I would argue on both anyone who deals with Matt Drudge, who's a legitimate politician, if you feed that guy stuff that is real information, you're legitimizing him. And so when he turns on you, as he inevitably will, because Matt Drudge is in this for Matt Drudge. He doesn't have loyalty. I mean, one of the reasons I like the guy, he doesn't care about, sort of conventional human bonds, let's say.
He does care about page views, though, but that's fine.
He does care about page views.
That's his thing.
But the thing is, so if you feed him information that's true, all that's going to do is make people think, well, Matt Drudge got it right this time, and so maybe the next time I read something sort of implausible on his website, I'll give it more benefit of the doubt than I would have otherwise. And that's why I think it's especially dangerous for someone like Hillary Clinton to do that kind of stuff, because every true piece of information she gave him is going to be sort of a piece of weight on the side of truth when he publishes something absolutely scandalous about her or about Bill in the future, and you know that he will.
And that may or may not be true. But I feel that the only counter-argument against that, well, or to counter that, you can't wish Matt Drudge away. And if you sort of, I mean, it's like dealing with any kind of, gossip page or anything like that. I mean, you have to kind of deal with them on a certain level. There's some sort of engagement. You have to find the right balance.
I think you're
because
speaking
you can't
from the
ignore
perspective. I think you're speaking from the perspective of New York media, which I think it's true. But I think
Page 6, baby. Page 6. Gawker, for that matter.
Right, exactly. But you know what? Most of the world doesn't consume that stuff. And I think that actually, like, the McCain campaign and the Obama campaign had very little interaction with Drudge. Almost no interaction with Drudge. And they haven't suffered for that. Yet. You're right, yet. I mean, we don't know. I mean, I think what's actually the more important thing to draw from this is not so much the fact that Hillary and Mitt Romney didn't profit from their association with Drudge, but that question that I asked at the very beginning, which is there hasn't been a Drudge-moved story in the entire primary. And I think that has to do with sort of the devaluing, and maybe this gets us to our next topic, but in general, how blogging has become a secondary medium, and how text-oriented websites of any kind are probably like not as powerful as people think they are, and that includes Drudge. I think
you're just saying that because we're going on Blogging Heads TV with this. It's like we're trying to get in with the new kids. Or
That's right. That's totally what I'm trying to do. But I'm actually serious, which is to say I think that it's so easy to do something like Drudge right now in terms of format. Like, we're all Drudge now. Anyone can slap up a website, and so many people have, that I think that the power of Drudge is diminished. And that's why you were saying we're going to agree about how television is probably more has sort of re-emerged.
Well, I would agree with you on that, but I would disagree with you on Drudge, because there's a big difference in between putting it up and getting it discovered and then having it become a destination. I mean, I go to Drudge multiple times a day, and there just aren't a lot of websites I do that with. I'm sorry?
Never mind.
There aren't a lot of websites I do that with, and there's not a lot of space for that kind of website. And there are more scandalous gossip sites out there, and there's more places more obsessed with sex scandals than that. But I mean, it serves a purpose, and I mean, it still gets enormous traffic.
No, it does. I just don't think it moves things in the same way. I think that its power has been diluted.
All right, conceivably. I mean, but
except when it comes to pets and weather, he totally has the pets and weather sort of, beat
and the House of Terror, 400 cats running around in their own filth. I mean,
and especially if there's a hurricane that hits the House of Terror pets.
Exactly.
That's totally a Drudge story.
No, I mean, you can actually plan it out in a vector. I mean, there's one of those quite often, and they usually are in Florida. I don't know why, but if you look, I'm not kidding. They're almost all in Florida. It's really crazy. But I mean, I don't think. I feel that it's just more that there's been a bit of a scandal vacuum in this entire campaign, and correct me if I'm wrong. Then there hasn't been. I feel that that's related to why Drudge hasn't really been a driver, rather than Drudge is losing some mojo.
Wow, that's an interesting question, because I think that, as you know, that there have been things that have threatened to become scandals on both sides, and in almost every campaign, that haven't quite reached the kind of critical mass that it would take to really knock someone out. Like, no one has been knocked out by a scandal. Not even Giuliani, who arguably deserved to be knocked out by a scandal.
Well, which one with him? But I mean, the press turned on him. I mean, or eventually, I shouldn't say that. The press started covering him, and it's interesting in that his numbers started going down when those articles started appearing.
No, his numbers started going down, just period, and then the articles started appearing. I'm not sure if we can do a real cause-effect relationship there.
Well, he's also one of the rare candidates where the more he shows up, the more his numbers go down, which is just bad if you're a candidate. I mean, Kerry had that to a degree.
That's right, although it looks like that's happening with Hillary as well.
I feel that I just read that she's kind of she just left Wisconsin for a couple of days, which is indicative of something.
Yeah. Well, I think that, I mean, I don't know. I have this whole theory that Hillary is the new Giuliani, but not sort of by accident. Like, she sort of put herself in a Giuliani corner by having to have these must-win states, and by it looking like, as voters get to know her, they start to think twice about her. But that also might be might be a function of them getting to know Obama at the same time. And
I think it's more of that, because I mean, everyone knows Hillary right now.
That's right.
But to go back to, I mean, as TV being the most powerful medium, I mean, I've been doing a bit of research on this, and just in trying to figure out where the ad dollars are going. And I write about media broadly, and obviously a lot. But bear with me, this is the boring part. Obviously, a lot of ad dollars are going to the web from other media and from other advertisers. And if you look at how campaigns advertise, particularly presidential campaigns, I mean, they're not spending anything on the web, and they're shoveling everything towards broadcast TV. And if you talk to them, I mean, they have, like, the people who are placing these ads have reasons that don't sound completely deranged. But the primacy of television is really unquestioned in this particular arena. Like, more than almost anywhere else, it's kind of touching in a way. It's like the 1950s all over again. I'm sorry?
It's old-fashioned.
It's old-fashioned, yes. I mean, and like maybe they'll get into that wacky cable stuff here and there, but seriously, I mean, they want to pound out as many broadcast ads as they can. They want to ensure that essentially they suck up as much inventory because the other guy doesn't get there. They never seem to think that maybe if there's a swing voter in Columbus on October 15th of next year, that they're not going to watch any political commercial on TV whatsoever. That doesn't occur to them.
Right. I think that also what's interesting, we were talking about this in terms of the debates. It turns out that a lot of campaigns have said that debates worked out really well for them because debates give you earned media. And I think one of the things that we're seeing in this cycle is that there's a shifting away of paid advertising in general. Where there is paid advertising, it's definitely going to TV. And then you have viral video, and you have sort of earned media opportunities that have to do with debate clips and photo ops. And there's sort of a general consensus that the campaign ad as we know it is disappearing. You know, the traditional campaign ad where, you know, picture of one guy in color smiling, then picture of second guy black and white looking scary with ominous music, like that's going away.
Except which candidate has spent more money on broadcast TV than any other in this cycle?
I would guess Obama.
You're correct.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, you can argue this both ways because Romney was number 2.
Right. Well, they have money to spend. But what I'm also saying is that I think that they have money to spend, but then, all right, you know who spent the least money of anyone in broadcast television, probably?
Gotta be Huck. Yeah, Huck.
Huckabee, and McCain probably, you know, second.
McCain spent more than you would think, but I mean, Giuliani spent. I mean, I had numbers through March that were, you know, provided by a source close to.
Well, there's not like there's what I think what we can say is there's not like a, you know, a direct relationship between ad dollars spent and poll numbers.
Oh no, absolutely not. But at the same time, no one. I mean, it's not that the big campaigns are abandoning television. I mean, they may not be able to afford it.
And I also think what I think is more actually what I was thinking about when we were talking about this wasn't ad dollars. It was about like where are the eyeballs and how are those? Where do you make the biggest difference? And I think the two places where campaigns can make the biggest difference is earned media in both TV and on the web. On the web, it's through viral video, which I do think makes a big difference. And then on the TV, it's like through news on TV. If you can get good news coverage on your local news, you know, that's going to carry you. Well,
that's basically it. And I would point out that viral video, I think the viral videos that have taken off are not coming from within the campaigns.
Yes, that's true. And I think that's one of the reasons why sort of the campaign ad as we know it is going to be disappearing, is I think that that viral videos and the videos that have really taken off have raised the bar for what a campaign ad could or should be, or what it is even. I mean, they've changed.
You know, I actually disagree with that, because if you look at the Obama campaign ads, they're incredibly traditional. I mean, they're like him speaking. And I'm Barack Obama and I approve this message. He hasn't done attack ads yet. I haven't seen a lot of... I've been watching a lot of stuff on the web, and I haven't watched a lot of the kind of attacky ads. But, I mean, the bar for political ads on TV is still incredibly low. I mean, you essentially have a earnest guy or an earnest woman in a suit talking into a camera, maybe in front of a crowd.
Maybe we have to disagree about the Obama ads, because I actually think that the music and even the typeface on the Obama ads is really different than most political ads.
Were they like putting Arcade Fire behind that or something?
No, not Arcade Fire. Although, I don't know if you noticed, but Arcade Fire, they did play before Mitt Romney rallies.
I read that, and I kind of despise Arcade Fire, but that completely blew my mind. I mean,
and also
there's like the one
Shins
hipster.
Were a big thing.
The one like 30-something kind of hipster in the Romney campaign.
Yeah, it's
got
true.
His hands
Totally, that's someone who worked for Romney was a big fan. But anyway,
exactly.
I think that the music, if you should go back and look at those Obama ads. It's a very kind of like non-traditional, like not orchestral, patriotic music, which is usually what you hear.
I will grant you that. I wish I could like sort of call up a bunch of them right now. But
and then again, I just want to go to the font issue with Obama, which I think is really interesting. I read a whole article about this, that Obama is one of the only candidates to use a sans serif font. That's hardly ever used in political campaigns.
You know, I'm really sad to say that I know this, but I think Dole Kemp and Bob Kerry both use sans serif fonts.
Oh wait, does this get us to our next subject?
About typography?
About whether McCain is Dole.
I think we have to. Yes.
Okay.
I'm. The thing about McCain is that I think he plays better on the bus than he does off the bus. His campaign style is incredibly old-fashioned, incredibly earnest. I mean, it goes back to like kind of almost the earliest 20th century. I'm not making fun of him because he's a bit older, but I mean, it's the guy speaking earnestly to the crowd, kind of slowly, almost pre-television. And this was actually Dole in '96. It took me years to figure this out, but journalists loved Bob Dole. I mean, he was funny. I mean, he would engage with them.
Right.
And in the '96 campaign, at a certain point, he was like, "I'm sorry, but I kind of can't hang out with you guys all the time anymore because I'm running for president." So you have someone who's got national hero bona fides who went through really grievous injury and/or imprisonment, while they were serving their country, in a war of a past generation. You have someone who can't really unite all the disparate factions of the Republicans, particularly the portions of the hard right that really drove a lot of the energy in '00 and '04. And you have a younger candidate on the Democratic side. Again, I'm making a presumption of Obama here. But
well,
I mean,
actually,
even
Hillary's not 72 either. So
no, she's not 72. But with Obama, there's a real enormous contrast.
No, you're right.
And I just feel that I hear at a lot of the kind of annoying Upper West Side liberals that you run into in Manhattan a lot, that they're terrified that McCain's going to be the next president. And I don't see him being as strong a candidate for this reason. I think his model is that of a past generation, and Obama definitely isn't. And for that matter, I mean, Hillary's run a fairly savvy campaign in terms of using internet and just making it look a little bit better.
Well, I mean, all I can tell you is that I think that there's a flip side to being I'm not going to argue that he's not a traditional candidate. He is a very traditional candidate. But I will say that there's a flip side to that, which worked for him in some venues, which is that he's an incredible retail campaigner. He just is. And
all right, well, that's interesting, because I haven't seen much evidence of that from what I see on TV.
I'll tell you how the evidence for that is him winning, New Hampshire and winning Florida and winning South Carolina. Though he got those wins not through television appearances and not the traditional media, he got those wins through doing hundreds of town halls. And the thing is can you take that town hall style approach and turn it into a general strategy? And
well, it didn't work out so badly for Bill Clinton.
It didn't, and so that's my. I mean, I'm not going to argue that. I see your point with him having kind of an old-fashioned way of approaching the campaign trail. But I will say, you should go to one of those town halls, John. You keep on sort of joking about how I'm the one who's been on the trail and you haven't, but I think it does make a difference. It is a question about how you can translate that to a general election. And I have talked to the campaign about what their plan is for trying to take the town hall approach to a general election. And it's been successfully done by Bill Clinton, but it was a very different environment, a media environment in that day and age.
And also, I think that Bill Clinton was a different kind of campaigner than even McCain is. I mean,
I do too. And also he was a more hands-on campaigner than McCain.
To his detriment in cases, but
yes.
That's getting into the Drudge kind of stuff.
But I think that the comparison between Dole and McCain is one that definitely the Democrats are going to push, no matter who gets the nomination on their side, and that is their strongest narrative for, again, whoever gets the nomination on the Democrat side, is to try and draw a parallel between McCain and Dole. And there are parallels, definitely. There are historical parallels. There are sort of temperament parallels.
Yeah, I forgot about temperament, actually. And there's generational...
and generational parallels. There's a lot of ways you can go with that. And it's sort of on McCain to show that he's not Bob Dole. And I think that I didn't cover Dole. I don't know Dole very well. All I can say is that if McCain is able to translate the kind of energy and, again, retail campaigning kind of skills that he has, he'll be fine. But I don't know if you can't. One thing that I think you and I have talked about that's a good point to make here is that you can't keep doing Straight Talk Express in a general election. There's just too many gosh darn reporters. You can't have a bus full of people. You have a plane, and also you don't drive around. You have a plane that flies around. And so,
but how's that different? I mean, you walk back and you get surrounded by 30 guys and you schmooze.
Well, I mean, it's numbers, honestly. When you're covering the McCain campaign in New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Florida, there may be 20 or 30 people. And you may not all get on the bus or the plane at the same time, but you get, an hour with the candidate or more every day. In a general election, it's not going to be 30 people. It's going to be 70, 80, 90 people.
So that's funny because this actually argues for Obama, not being hurt by the fact that the press will feel...
It does argue for that. No, I think that the pressure is going to be on the McCain campaign to try and figure out a way to take that style of campaigning and translate it into a general election. I don't know.
And here I was thinking that it was somehow to Obama's detriment that he's playing soccer arenas essentially in political terms, but
no, actually, it's no. I mean, I agree that. See, what I was saying earlier is that I agree that that's McCain's hope is to be able to take this strategy or this technique and take it to the general. But if they can't, then totally, Obama has the style of a general election on his side because he's basically been running in the style of a general since he started.
Right, and he can give a great speech with that. I mean, I'm at a major conceptual disadvantage here because I haven't watched McCain work a rope line the way you have. But I just don't feel that I from what I see, I just don't see. I feel like that kind of rock starness that overcomes the unfair word creakiness of the campaign in a lot of other ways. And
he doesn't have the rock star stuff. He doesn't. I mean, I think that's for all the things that I admire about him as a candidate, he doesn't have that. And what he has is he does have earnestness. But I'd say that that was also what Barack Obama has on his side. I mean, the hipsters like Barack Obama, but I don't know if you read recently there was something in Slate about the hipster who's giving up on Barack Obama because it's...
Yeah, actually, I was kind of cringing about 2 paragraphs into that. I forced myself to read the whole thing.
Well, but I thought that was awful. I thought it was I really thought, no, the reason why we like Barack Obama is because he isn't ironic. He is earnest.
Well, he's incredibly earnest, and my gosh, his supporters are just kind of completely out of control on some of that.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm a very ironic and cynical person, but
yeah,
more power to the kids. I mean,
I agree, but I mean, I got involved in an email exchange with someone who's a big Obama supporter, and this person was saying, I'd quit my job to do opposition research for him in the general campaign in a second, but I just don't think he's going to do that kind of thing. And I was thinking, oh, please, he doesn't have 3 or 4 guys, burrowing in on everybody right now.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
That he wouldn't take a swing at somebody.
No, and he will. I mean, actually, I think that was, I always thought the Obambi, kind of knock on him was really false. He's definitely going to take swings on people.
Right. Although I'm not really sure if have we really seen that in a big way, or can he just do it in an artful enough way, in the way that Bill Clinton would smile and do it, and he did a very good job.
Well, that's actually a good question. He doesn't. I think we haven't seen it.
Right. Well, you might want to start soon. Although I guess if he feels that he's if he feels that he can run out the shot clock a little bit, I guess he doesn't feel it's zero-sum enough with him and Hillary that he has to do that. Yeah,
those 2 debates will be really interesting because she's definitely going to go after him. But at this point, all he has to do is stay above it. The Messiah that he is. He will walk on Hillary as though she were water.
And then walk across the water to get to the 80,000 people that are waiting to shake his hand and faint. But he did mix it up a bit with her in one of the previous CNN debates, right?
And it didn't go well. I mean, that was actually. I think. Well, it'll be interesting to see if it is him, it'll be interesting to see he and McCain go at it. Because McCain's strong suit is not, subtle, digs at someone. I mean, he really, when he goes after somebody, he takes great pleasure in doing it. And I think, there was this sort of, the conventional wisdom about what happened in debates when Obama went after Hillary is that, you're going after the lady, and that looks bad. Well, going after the young black guy probably is not going to look bad either. Although going after the old, POW maybe also not good. Some people have said and Mark McKinnon is one of them, just to bring this full circle, is that the best thing that could happen for this country is for it to be an Obama-McCain election. Because
why is that the best thing to happen for this country? I mean, someone's got to win and someone's got to lose, and it's going to be nasty. And if those guys aren't nasty, the 529s are going to be going. I mean, they're frothing at the mouth already.
And yes,
yeah, sorry, 527, 529, 530,
529 is like a tax code.
Well, what can I say? It's also an exchange on the east side of Lower East Side of Manhattan. Never mind, carry on.
Well, but I was going to say that at least Mark McKinnon has said that it would be a good thing for this country because he thinks that it would be a cleaner election and a less, nasty dialogue than you'd have between, say, McCain and Hillary or Barack and Hillary.
I just have a hard time believing that. I mean, it might be marginally less bad, but this is the thing I don't know. I mean, people don't give power up easily. And it may not even be McCain, but it may just be, the groups around him that are just going to, try to rip the Democrats' limbs off, which is kind of what it's their thing to do. Maybe that'll be relatively ineffective against Obama. Maybe it could backfire a bit against Hillary. I don't know. But the idea that we're going to get into this place of new civility, I'm not really sure I feel it.
Is this an appropriate note to end on?
Perhaps.
No, seriously, do we have anything else?
I don't think so. I think we covered everything. All right, well, hey, good seeing you, even though I didn't see you.
Bill, you'll see, I'm actually in our library.
In a library or in your library?
The home library.
Fabulous. Well, I'm in our library.
Happy birthday, by the way.
I'm sorry?
Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's coming up very quickly. What can I say? All right, well, great talking.
Is there anything else we need to do? Do we need to sign off of any kind?
No, I think we already did, actually. Hopefully they'll end this part because it's getting embarrassing.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. Hopefully we'll do this again.
Hey, if they have us back, it's all up to, the overlord, Bob Wright, pretty much.
All right.
See ya.
All right. Thanks.